Last year, we had our best year ever at 194 transactions. And so we started this year and we had the worst first quarter we had had in 3 years. And we went, this isn't good. The numbers are bad. So bad, I cut a big fat check to keep the business going in February. We knew we had to do something different. And then we had an aha moment. And honestly, the end result blew us away. And so in the first quarter of the year, we did about $12 million in volume. In the next 2 months, we did $21.1 million in volume just from those action steps.
Do you remember Raiders of the Lost Ark when Indiana Jones is running through the forest looking for this incredible treasure on the hunt for fortune and glory? Friends, I found it. I found the model that helped a team in Gainesville, Florida do $20 million in closed business over 8 weeks. And yes, there is a model on exactly how to do it. This team closes over 200 transactions year in and year out. It's run by a gentleman named Jonathan Mills. He's an amazing practitioner, and he's going to tell us exactly how to do 20 million in 8 weeks. Sit back and buckle up. This is Jonathan Mills. And I am joined by a buddy of mine, Jonathan Mills. Jonathan, how are you, sir?
I'm fantastic, Jason. Thank you so much. And you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for doing this with us. Gang, you're not going to believe this, but we're going to get there in a minute. Before we do, I got to ask, how did you get into the greatest industry in the world?
It's a little bit of a long story, but I'll shorten it as much as I can. But it actually started when I was 7 years old. So when I was a little kid, I wanted a yearbook for some reason in second grade, really bad. And I have older siblings. And so the rule in my family is when you graduate from a given school, elementary, middle, so on, you get a yearbook. And so I was in second grade, so I wasn't getting a yearbook, but I wanted one because my older sisters got one that year. And I went to my mom and I'm begging and pleading, and she's like, I'm not giving you the $35. You're going to have to go buy it yourself, which was kind of a like, no. I took that as a personal challenge. And so I racked my brain as a 7-year-old of how can I make $35 by Monday, and it's Saturday. And the best thing I could come up with was a lemonade stand. And at that time, I didn't understand the value of location, but we had the first house in the neighborhood, so I was kind of poised for greatness there. And so I set up shop. I got a pitcher out, poured some lemonade or some Crystal Light lemonade mix into it and some water, and got to business. And I made exactly $35 that day, which is how much I needed to buy the yearbook. So I got my first taste at 7 years old of kind of what you get for working. And so by high school, that escalated to the lawn business. So I was pushing a lawnmower around the neighborhood, cutting grass, upgraded. I saved up enough money to buy a 0-turn lawnmower and a truck and all this stuff. And so by junior year, I was driving my truck to school with, all the equipment in the back on the trailer, and I would just leave school and go mow lawns. And again, good timing. It was like 2009, 10, 11. And I was mowing builders' vacant lots that weren't selling, and there was no shortage of supply of those. So I was doing quite well. I was making, $500 a weekend as a kid in high school. And so I went to business school, or I enrolled for business school, we should say. And by the end of my freshman year, I dropped out of college because I was just taking so many electives. I think my first semester was like rock and roll history and marine biology and like psychology. And I went to my counselor. I'm like, okay, so when does business school start? And like, oh, you got another year of electives. You'll be fine. I'm like, I don't want another year of electives. So I dropped out of college. I called my mom the last day of finals week, and I said, I'm coming home tonight. And luckily, I was the first person in my family not to go to college.
What did mom say? Okay.
She was like, she was just like, there's clearly something going on here. And so when I came home, I was like, I'm going to, my parents, their other rule was we'll pay for your college. You can go anywhere in the country you want to go as long as it's in the state of Florida, because we have Florida prepaid. And so I just gone up the street and I was like, look, I'm saving you money. I'm going to come back and not going to waste your money because I just didn't feel like I was getting what I needed. And so that weekend, I went to the beach with some friends, and my mom, on my way out the door, does what she does best. She goes, hey, by the way, when you get back from your vacation, you're going to have a job, and it's going to get real. And in fact, you're cut off, which was tough love in the best way. And so I went on this trip, and I'm telling my friends, and I'm walking down the beach, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm 19. I have no degree, nothing to fall back on. And my best friend Celeste goes, you're always on Zillow. And this is 2014, right? So Zillow's not that popular, but you're always on this app called Zillow looking at houses. You're always obsessed with that show, $1 Million Listing. Go do real estate. And again, lucky for me, another good friend of mine from high school, her dad owned a brokerage and her mom was the #1 agent in our MLS. And so I phoned them up that night when they came back from their family vacation. I met with them. They told me to sign up for the class, which was actually starting the next day. And 2 weeks later, I had my real estate license. So that's probably why there's more real estate agents in Florida than anywhere else.
There are a lot of them, but they don't all succeed like you have. When you get into it, is it success right from Jump Street? I mean, is it just good stuff from the beginning?
No, I did have a great mentor at my previous brokerage. And my first year, I did 7 transactions. And gross, I made $20,000. In net, I made $2,500. And so that was awesome. And I learned from that. But the reason I only made $2,500 is I was investing in lead generation. I invested in Zillow at that time. And I actually got laughed at my brokerage. In one of the meetings, people were like, Jonathan, how are you getting business? My second year, I did 21 transactions. And people were going, how are you getting business so early? You're like, you can't even grow a beard. And I'm like, I'm buying leads. And they all just laughed at me. And they're like, you're buying leads? And so long story short, within a few years, I was selling about 100 homes a year. And then last year, we doubled that to 194. So it was not a quick start, but it did speed up at around year 5.
It's fantastic. I want to get into this thing. Friends, you know what time it is. We are about to unpack a model. Now, you don't have to take the notes. I'm taking the notes. So if you're on the treadmill doing the old 12, 3, 30, and let me just say this, if you know, you know, you don't have to worry about slowing down or lowering the ramp. I'm taking the notes. They come out every Thursday as a PDF. We email it to you. If you don't get them, go to MREAnotes.com. That's MREAnotes.com. Jonathan, you all challenged yourselves. And in 8 weeks, your team managed to generate $20 million in volume in closed business. Friends, not just maybe business, but closed business. I want you, because the market is shifting, and a lot of my real estate brothers and sisters are saying, hey, Jay, it was great, not so great anymore. I want you to walk me through exactly how I go do this. Tell me.
So it's a little convoluted, but I'm going to break it down into as few steps as possible. But we came up with kind of a mini bold 8x8 challenge. And so
okay, we got friends from every brokerage. If I don't know what bold is, walk me through that, and then walk me through why you did this, and then tell me exactly what you did.
BOLD stands for Business Objective Life by Design. It's a course at Keller Williams. That's job is to get you into production and kind of spark the actions that you were doing when you first got in the business, the things you're supposed to be doing all the time to stay off of the real estate roller coaster. So last year, Gary rewrote BOLD to Onward BOLD. And so last year we didn't have BOLD in our area, and we knew it's usually in the fall. We're actually in it right now, but we're in the first quarter of this year, and the tides had turned, and we're going, we need to do something. We need to do it now. And so we thought back, we're going, hey, what about BOLD? And what if we made our own version of that? And about 2 years ago, my director of operations, Noah, he made a thing called an 8x8 challenge. And the intention behind it was, I actually have it here. The intention behind it was, what if we can make a one-pager for new agents getting the business is kind of like the last step before they join the team. So brand new agents, we don't know if they're actually going to do the production. We want to spend the time and money onboarding them yet. So if we like them, what if we gave them a 2-month campaign where if they went and did those items for 2 months and started seeing success, we'd bring them on the team and know that they're actually going to do what we tell them, right?
That's so smart. Did that work?
That's the fun part. It sat in the Google Drive for 2 years and collected dust. And so it was an amazing idea. But what happened is, so I'll backtrack a little bit. So last year we had our best year ever at 194 transactions. And so we started this year and we had the worst first quarter we had in 3 years. And we went, this isn't good. And so it's April 1st, literally, and we just had our quarterly review with the team, and I'm like, the numbers are bad. So bad, I cut a big fat check to keep the business going in February. We had our worst month in like 5 years. So the shift had happened pretty hardcore in Florida in the first quarter. And so anyways, we knew we had to do something different. And so we're scratching our heads going, maybe it's BOLD. And then we remembered, what about that 8x8 campaign you made a few years ago? And then we had an aha moment. We can do both. So if we had kind of the coaching and accountability of BOLD coupled with an action step program, and we gave it to our agents and gamified it, what would be the end result? And honestly, the end result blew us away. And to your point, so in the first quarter of the year, we did about $12 million in volume. And in the next 2 months, we did $21.1 million in volume. Just from those action steps.
Okay, now everyone listening is like, I'm in. Literally, I want to do this. Walk me through, and don't spare me the specifics. I want to be able to do this tomorrow. Take me on the journey.
Yeah, and if you reach out, I will send you a copy of this so you can rip and repeat.
Well, friends, we'll be providing it for you in the one-pager, but go ahead.
Yep. There you go. So the 8 steps, I'm going to go through the 8 steps, and I'll kind of talk about how we built the model around this. But the 8 steps are, each week, you need to add 5 new contacts to your database. That's step 1. So, AKA 1 a day.
When you say add 5 people, I need their name, I need their phone number, and I need their email.
And bonus points if you can get their address, but we use Fellow, so oftentimes if we have the name, phone number, and email, we can get the address.
By the way, if you don't know Fellow, friends, Ryan Young, love what he's doing. Go check out that company, Fellow. Any real estate agent, I think, should be using Fellow. That's just me. Okay, so adding 5 in step 1, that might be easy the first week or the second week. How do they find the 5? Give me a couple of the hacks.
I will get to that in a minute. I have a few stories to tell you that in a second. But we had ways that people were getting 20 and 30 in a day, and then that would buy them time. But people, our team members, ran into that really quick. It sounds easy. Everything I'm going to tell you is super, super simple until you go to put it in practice. So
okay.
5
Step
contacts,
1,
one
5.
contact a day. Yep, 1 a day. Next is 1 handwritten card a day. So 5 notes per week. So far we got 5 minutes of tasks. 1 new contact in the database, 1 handwritten note. The next one is one of the challenges. It's 5 connections a day. You need to speak to 5 human beings, either giving them something of value or asking them for a piece of business directly. So that's 25 contacts a week. The next step, number 4, is 3 role play sessions a week, 30 minutes in length at least. And now we have the tool of AI. So it used to be, just a few months ago, it used to be that we would do those in person, but now you can do them with AI. And just spending 30 minutes practicing role playing around any objections, and we'll get into that in more detail in a minute. The next step is host 2 open houses a week. And a twist we put in here is we actually had our admin do this with us. And so for admins, it was get 2 reviews a week for that same step. Next step is get 2 signed agreements. BBA, listing agreement, whatever it may be, a signed agreement. This isn't contracts, but an agreement. And for agents or for admin, our challenge was to get 2 referrals to the team a week. That's a big challenge. And then just 2 more. The next one is 5 social media posts a week, which is just 1 a day, and 1 contract a week. You need to sign 1 sales contract a week. So those are the 8 steps. So you see most of these are broken down into daily tasks, like what can I do? And it's most of them are 1, just 1 thing a day, super simple and super digestible. But as you know, real estate agents have busy days and light days. And so what would happen is a few days in, they'd be behind, and then they'd have a 3-hour time block one morning to actually try and catch up. So to gamify this is the next step here. So we have the credentials, right? These are the things you have to do. But to actually gamify this and to make it accountable, we added a point system, which is on the back of the sheet. And the point system is for things like the handwritten note cards, adding connections and social media posts. Those were 1 point each, so a low weight. The next category for 5 points was role play sessions. Getting a 5-star review or hosting open house would get you 5 points. A signed agreement would get you 10 points. And a signed contract would earn the team 30 points. So that's kind of the outline of the actual accountability metric, right? So those are the numbers. But here's where things get interesting. At this time, we had an even team. And what I mean by that is we had 5 agents and 5 admin playing together. And so that's why we tied them up. So every agent was paired up with 1 admin, and they formed teams. So we had 5 teams. And we had them compete as teams to win a prize. And so the goal was whoever earned the most points during this 8-week span from these action items would win 2 $150 gift cards to the restaurant of their choice. So basically the admin and the agent would both get a gift card, theoretically to take their families or their spouses out for putting up with them for the 8 weeks and reward them for that. So that was the gamification. Is we added a point system, we added a reward at the end, and then we tag teamed agents and admin because we wanted to get the admin involved in the business.
By the way, I'm guessing the $150 gift cards for restaurants was Satchel's for the best pizza in Florida, which happens to be in Gainesville.
It was for me. I go there every Friday, so I was just there last night. But there's lots of good restaurants here.
So I'm immediately taken with 3 things when I hear what you're saying. Number 1, the idea of 8 steps can feel overwhelming, but the reality of it is this breaks down to taking 6 actions on a daily basis that result in the lag measure, which is the agreements getting signed. Is that how you thought about it?
It's 100% how we thought about it. And so that's what we taught our agents was going, look, it's very obvious that agreements and contracts earn substantially more points than everything else. So you're never going to win in this challenge if all you're doing is writing handwritten notes and adding people to your database. However, If this week you haven't, if you've met all your things, you did your 25 connections, you wrote your 5 cards, you added 5 people to your command, but you didn't get an agreement signed or you didn't get a contract signed, do more. And somehow, and if they go, what do we do? You do those 6 things. Forget everything else. Go make a social media post with a mofer, a call to action. Go write a handwritten note to somebody. And the reason for the handwritten notes, Jason, if you think to who you would write a note to right now, I imagine it's someone you really care about or someone you have a kind of deeper relationship. It could be someone you haven't seen in 10 years, but they're just on your mind, an old mentor, a friend, a family member. Those are the first people who are going to give you business. So that was kind of the reason for adding that step in there, is if we can get really intentional about posting to the masses on social media, but making direct outreach in a really old school way to people who we know are going to like and trust us, the likelihood that success would come from this would be pretty substantial. And it was.
The second thing that jumped out at me was it sounds totally doable as you and I sit here right now and talking about it. But my trainer told me 30 minutes of cardio 6 days a week. And when he said it, I was like, 30 minutes? No problem. Brother, I'm struggling. This is easy, but easy can sometimes be hard.
Yeah. It's simple. So now we're going to build on this. So then we said, okay, how do we keep people involved, right? So we knew exactly what you're saying. We're sitting here going, all right, we think we've got a good system, but how do we keep them involved and motivated for 8 weeks? Because people can fall off pretty quick. That's where Bold comes in. So we built a 1 day a week. We built a bunker on Wednesday mornings from 9 a.m. till 10:30, an hour and a half time block. All hands, everyone had to be on that meeting. No home inspections, no nothing, no excuses. You're in this meeting. And so what we did there is we would just ask 4 simple questions to the group. And then once we're done with kind of coaching around those questions, we would go into a Bold light. So I would literally take out the old Bold books and I would just make a makeshift Bold class about the things that I thought were really impactful. And so to your point, the first week, what we talked about was mindset, to get people excited, to get them jazzed up. We knew week 2, they would have the exact realization. Week 1, everyone's ready to go. By day 7, they're like, wait a minute, I feel like I've been tricked into something that I didn't realize would be this hard. And so we did the Bold exercise where you calculate how much is Bold worth to you. And so we had them say, okay, if you did this and you got 1 contract signed a week for 8 weeks, times your average sales price, times that commission, what is this worth to you? And that kind of lit that fire again. So we kind of built in things like that throughout the system to keep them engaged.
I love that. Needless to say, friends, all commissions are negotiable everywhere. We all know that to be the case. But number 2 is so smart because now they've tied a dollar amount that may end up in their pocket if they do the actions. I think that's genius. What did y'all do on week 3?
That's a great question. So on week 3, weeks 3 through 7 were just, again, Bold principles. So kind of tools in your tool belt. So by week 3, they're going, all right, I'm kind of running out of my bag of tricks. And so we would talk about the things that Bold would get you. How do you add value in a conversation? What are some ideas of adding value? What does that look like? We would role play about asking for business. So how to gamify asking for business. Hey, I'm in an 8-week challenge right now. I'm really looking to be the number 1 person on my team to earn the most business in this 8 weeks. Is there anyone you know who might be looking to buy or sell real estate sometime in the near future? Again, so we just role play, practice all of those things that you would do in Bold. We just boiled it down to the nuts and bolts.
There are so many people that say, Jason, I could never say that. I'm not solicitous by nature. And Jonathan, I know you care so deeply about people, but you still have no problem asking for business. When you have people on your team that say, this feels icky, what do you tell them?
So then let's pivot real quick. So let's go to the 4 questions that we would ask at the beginning of every single Bold meeting, because it's going to answer your question. The first question was, what did you do this week that made you a win? What was your win? Share what you did. What was your success? I got a contract. I got 2 contracts, whatever it was. Awesome. The next question was, what did we talk about last week that was the most impactful to you? The third question was, what did you actually implement that impacted your success? So what did you do that got you the win? And then the 4th one was, what was your biggest obstacle or objection? What prevented you from success? You have to ask all 4 questions. Those 4 questions is where the magic happened. And so someone would come back after week 1 and they'd go, I just can't do this. This really sucks. 2 things there. 1, remember, they're in a team. People don't do things for them. So for your fitness example, I only do group training. I will work out at like a 50% level if it's just me versus me. But if I've got a bunch of people surround me and I feel like they're watching me, I'm going to work out at the highest level. And so I only do group training as kind of my hack for that. And so this is the same thing. If I'm going for a prize, I might not do things that make me really uncomfortable to get the prize. But if my team member success rests on my action, I'm going to do things that I might not have otherwise done. So we had team members taking really big action that made them super uncomfortable simply because they didn't want to let their team member down. So that's step one for the accountability. But part two, the things that would like come up. We actually had a really vulnerable story. There was a person on our team who the entire time they had been on the team never posted anything on social media, not one post. And I'm like, please, for the love of God, post something on social media. And I'm a big social media person. It was obviously part of this campaign. So day 3 comes around of this competition, still no social media post. And I'm kind of loving on them going like, you're letting your team down, by not doing this. And so they mustered up the courage to put a post. Long story short, the first comment on the post was, what? You're in Gainesville and selling real estate? I need to buy a house. And they scheduled an appointment right there. I swear, first comment was in 15 minutes of making the post. And so aha, light bulb moment, right? So then they shared the reason in our next meeting. So the next week comes around, we're in our meeting, we're going, what were your limiting beliefs? And they shared that. And they had a really deep story as to why they weren't posting on social media. And it was this huge fear of theirs. And because they were in this competition and kind of forced to take action, they did it, but then got this reward, right? And so they share the story. And now every other team is listening and going, wait a minute. That person broke through their limiting beliefs and got success. And that happened every single week. Someone tried something that they were totally uncomfortable doing, and it won. It created a winning result.
That's such a big idea. And we always hear, like, get a swim buddy. It makes everything easy. But I don't think you get this result if they're not playing with someone. And you're going to have people listening right now who say, well, look, dude, I don't own a team. It's just me. Go grab anybody in your brokerage, your market center that wants to play. Someone out there wants to play.
It's so funny you say that. Back in the day at my old brokerage, I was the same way. I was a single agent. But there was another agent that I would always compete against. And every year we would do almost the exact same volume. And so we actually put thermometers on the exterior of our office doors. And we would have competitions to see who would hit that number first. And then whoever lost had to buy the winner dinner. And so I've been doing that for years, way before I had a team. So that's not an excuse, to your point, but you have to be in this with people. And another example, this actually impacted people outside of the team. So Brian on our team, his wife's a pharmacist and she is the sweetest person in the world, but a little shy, like sales isn't her thing. That's why she's a pharmacist. And so he had been on the team for 2 years, never sold a single home to anyone in healthcare, right? 0. And this competition happens. We're in week 2. And he's on the phone with his wife. It's on speakerphone. I walk in, I overhear it. And I'm like, hey, kind of nudging him going, you should get her to, ask for some business. And he kind of jokingly goes, hey, babe, can you ask someone if they, need to buy or sell real estate in the office and in the pharmacy? And so she jokingly on speakerphone goes, hey, Dave, do you know anyone looking to buy or sell a house? My husband's a realtor. And he goes, what? Oh my God, of course. I'm actually about to list my house. Swear.
You're kidding.
Oh, get ready for this. Brian also had never sold a home over $500,000. That's kind of above that is tiptoeing in luxury in our market. He closed 2 homes over $900,000 and signed a $750,000 agreement during this 8-week campaign because of the pharmacy. Just from his wife, because she watched this happen and goes, wait a minute, it was literally that easy. And so she started becoming his number 1 referral partner.
That's unbelievable, man. So now levitate above all of this for a moment and talk to me like I own a team. I'm about to kick this into gear. Number 1, what are the hacks? Because I'm going to have people that say they can't make the contacts. I'm going to have people that say that they can't spell and they can't write the notes. So give me any hacks you can. And if I'm going to screw this up, if this is going to break, where is it going to break and save me the heartache?
Absolutely. So I'm a story guy. So you have to have some stories. You should have been in some sales training, whether it's bold or something else. Take the content from that, whatever you learned, and you need to preemptively make 8 weeks of teaching. And you need to think in advance, just like I told you. You were saying exactly what we thought. We know after 1 week, the energy is going to start getting low. We also know around week 4, the halfway point, so week 1 happens, they get some success, but they're like, oh, I'm running out of ideas. So we reinvigorate them with money. Week 4 comes around. Now they're going, oh, it's been a month. It's crazy. This is really hard. There's a lot to do. And here's the crazy part. They're getting busy, right? And why are they don't put these things together. They start complaining about busyness in week 4 and 5. And they don't come to the recollection that, wait a minute, I'm busy because I've been doing for 4 weeks the tasks that I should have been doing the whole time. So your biggest problem in the second half of this is keeping them doing these tasks while they're busy because they're going to generate so much business. And that's the point. You have to have a weekly meeting to keep everyone kind of locking arms around this idea and then sharing why they're successful. So if I show up to that meeting and I go, there's no way I could do this, you better believe there is some team somewhere and they're going, are you crazy? That was the thing we did that got us the most success last week. So you asked a question earlier, Jason. You said something about, what if I can't get my contacts? One a day is really hard. Keaton from our team was inspired by Brian's wife, actually. He goes, wait a minute, he's a nurse and he works one day a month to keep insurance and kind of keep the things going. And so he goes in the hospital. He started going to the hospital a little more often for a shift just to kind of meet people. And so the next time he went to the hospital, he did a giveaway and on his floor, and he knows all these nurses and doctors, he works with them. And he just put a little sign up with his face on it and said, I'm giving away a $200 gift card to Spurrier's, another great restaurant in town. And all you have to do is enter to win right here. And the enter to win was name, phone number, email, and you have to answer a question. Are you looking to buy or sell a home in the next 6 months? 24 people entered that competition that day. 10 of them said, yes, I'm looking to buy or sell a home in the next 12 months.
Get out of here.
So someone comes to the team the next week and says, oh, I can't get my connections. It's so hard. Keaton goes, I've got my 5 connections for 5 weeks just from one action, and it cost me $200.
You know, it's so crazy because like if I closed my eyes and heard what you just said, I would say you're telling stories from 2020, from 2021. Brother, you're talking about something that happened 60 days ago.
Yeah.
That's incredible to me. So now I got to ask, because I think you're brilliant and I think this is brilliant. And we know there's no debating on what the result was. Friends, it was $20 million worth of business closed in 8 weeks. Here's the question. Why do you ever stop doing this? Why doesn't this just become the way the Mills Group does business?
We're about to do another one because we're in that lull. So we're in bold right now, so we're going to finish that up. But we decided we're going to do this 2 to 4 times a year, depending on the market and depending on feelings. The thing is, people do get a little tired. And so we knew by the 8 weeks, people were like, okay, like I really got to, keep doing things. What's so funny is, this was now 3 months ago. Around day 45, after the competition ended, we started hearing grumblings about like, oh man, my business isn't looking the way. July was a really good month. Yeah, it was. You know what I'm saying? And so they've caught on. Wait a minute. And so I asked them, I go, well, I'm assuming you had all the success. You must still be doing all the things from the campaign, right? Zero. No one is. And so we actually just had that chat in our most recent team meeting. And so we're going to be implementing another one after our session of Bold is over. And everyone's actually really excited for it. So my point being is we've discovered that we can actually do this more often than not. I would say an aggressive cadence would be once a quarter. So 2 months a quarter, you're doing it, a month off and so on. But I say give it a shot and then find out what works for you. But people get a little tired and then you got to let them get hungry, right? So they're going to go that month and be like, wait a minute, I'm hungry now. And so they want it versus if it was always a competition, it's not as exciting.
Dude, it's so sage. There's this weird thing that happens where people stop doing the thing that works. And then all of a sudden the result changed and they're like, well, I don't know what it is. You stopped doing whatever was working. It's almost like you work out and you get to a point where you look in the mirror and you're like, I'm awesome. And then you start eating all the shit again. And before you know it, you're back to where you were before you started. I don't know why that happens, but it does.
It does. But then you want it again, right? So then you work twice as hard to get back to where you were. And so that's what we've discovered is through a break, we actually thought the team would want 3 months of break. After a month to a month and a half that they were ready to start it again. And then happenstantially Bold was happening. And so we pushed pause to do Bold and then we'll start this again after Bold.
Gary Keller, and if you're new to the program, Gary Keller wrote the book, The Millionaire Real Estate Agent with Jay Papasan and Dave Jenks. May he rest in peace. And Gary always says, the road to making a change in your life begins by setting a big challenge. This idea that you can set a big challenge that's going to require you to change the way that you think and change the way you behave. And ultimately, it forces you to set up your life around doing the activities. And I think that's spot on. And that's, Jonathan, that's what you did here. And that's why it's brilliant.
And that's the biggest piece here. So I think the reason we're on this call today is because during Gary's mastermind, I think you'd agree, somewhere around 70% of the conversation was surrounding fear. And this is, the biggest minds in our industry coming together in this sacred space. And we're talking about fear, like what's happening in this market? How do you, one of the conversations was, how do we take a listing for 2 years? Those conversations were coming up and there was a lot of fear around that. How do I negotiate these things? Whatever it may be. But it's also your agents. If the top people in our company are feeling this, you better believe the new agents are feeling this. And so Gary talks a lot about exposure therapy. And that's what this was. This was a safe space for 8 weeks for people to practice exposure therapy and share the results freely with other team members and then get inspired by so they faced their fears. They did something that made them uncomfortable. They got success from it and realized it wasn't as scary as they wanted. So then it created this domino effect. We had 3 different competitions going on in 3 different hospitals as a result of this. People were looking for like, hey, do you know a nurse? Like, so they could go and put something in their, I'm not kidding. There were quite a few departments that were having little competitions going on simultaneously. And that was because one person tried it and had massive success.
It's so good. By the way, he is on Fear right now. He's writing a new course and all new writings around it. Friends, trust me on this. You're going to love when that comes out. All right, I want to switch gears. Jonathan, I got a question for you. I heard through the grapevine that you run your business, but you took somewhat of a sabbatical and moved to Manhattan while your business is running. Did I get that right?
Yeah, so I lived in Manhattan last year, and that's the interesting thing too, right? So in 2023, we sold 104 homes, and in 2024, January 8th, I moved to Manhattan, and we sold 194 homes. So we actually doubled up in volume.
And that's what's crazy, because I knew the dates, and you and I have not had this discussion before, but I gotta ask, number one, why Manhattan? And number two, what did you learn being that far away from your business?
Great question. So Manhattan was always on my kind of to-do list of something I wanted to do. In fact, I had been wanting to move there since 2020 and just hadn't had the opportunity. At one point, I remember going to my team leader and saying, hey, I'm closing shop. I'm going to end the Mills Group, and I'm just going to go move to Manhattan. I had been introduced to Frederick Eklund of Million Dollar Listing, which was my favorite show as a kid, and was told I could be on his team. So I'm like, I'm going to go do that. And luckily, we have a lot of amazing accountability here in Keller Williams. And I ran into Brady Sandel, and he goes, you're using a lot of buts, you should be using ands. Why can't you run your team and go do that? And so that changed my mind. That was in 2021. So then I spent the next 3 years building a business, really 2 years, building a business that would support me living my dream. And so that's what we did. And the only reason I came back is actually my number one agent. Well, this is part of how this all kind of came together. In November, my number one agent left the team to focus on being a mother, but she did 99 transactions in her first year as an agent on our team.
Wow.
Yeah, she did 99 transactions. However, do the math, that's half the business. And so when she left the team, my lease was ending and I needed to come home and rebuild that section of our team. But for that year that I had it, we were running a really well-oiled machine. And what I realized was if I can sit in the seat of coach, I took coaching skills camp in SPL, Servant Productivity Leadership from Gary, a total of 3 times last year while I was in Manhattan, really honing in on that skill. And what I learned is when I got out of business and truly got away, people aren't walking by the door asking me questions all day. I wasn't having unnecessary lunch and coffee dates. I was really having phone calls that I needed to have and Zoom meetings I needed to have. I was working maybe 30 hours a week, but my production level was exponentially higher because the distraction was so low. So the kind of part of Bold About Build a Bunker, Manhattan was truly my bunker, and it's what created those results.
All right, biggest difference between selling real estate in Gainesville and selling real estate in Manhattan? Time.
So I was on a few listings, like one was 5.7 million. A normal home in that price point in Manhattan can take upwards of 2 years to sell. Like days on market average is like 600-700 days. So you have to be very uncomfortable with time and be very comfortable with these uncomfortable amounts of time. Versus in Florida, right now, things are taking a little longer, maybe 70 days, but that's 10 times less time. And when we hit the 70-day mark, sellers are like, why isn't it sold? It's Florida. And in Manhattan, you just have to constantly have conversations. And a close second is, in Florida, I've always viewed real estate as an amazing investment, right? So my my purchasers who bought a few years ago and are selling today are making all this great money, even despite the market, because of how things went in 2020 and 2021 and so on. In Manhattan, it was not uncommon for people to be losing 7 figures on a sale. And they were just like, yeah, that sucks, whatever, on to the next one, just because they didn't like the kitchen anymore. So I thought that was really different.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that is a different world. Dude, yeah. I think you're brilliant. I love what you guys did. I love how you gamified it. I sit here and my inside voice is saying, you're not running enough competitions in your life or your business. And if you want to make a change, go run a competition. I'm going to give you final thoughts, Jonathan. Because here's the deal, man. You got 100,000, give or take, people listening to you this week alone. Here's what I can tell you. The majority will not go take action. I don't know why. What would you tell them?
Well, what you should have heard earlier is what I said about when I was at my previous brokerage and a single agent. I was still forcing myself to create competitions because there was an embarrassment, right? So I had posted on my door my volume production right next to my competitor on her door. And so when she had more volume on the board than me, that was somewhat embarrassing. So I would go out and get some more business. When you're a top producer, or if you want to be a top producer, one thing you're going to catch on to relatively quickly is we're in a business where you can make pretty crazy amounts of money. The money isn't the point of the game. At some point, it's about, to Gary's point, being the best you can be. And so I have to gamify things because I'm doing it to serve as many people as I possibly can and give away, and create new people, like having McCall sell 99 homes in her first year. That's what I'm in it for. But no one just wakes up and sells 99 homes. They have to be super motivated. And the motivation for me comes from competition. So to your point, find a way to create a competition, but I cannot emphasize enough. Find a way to also create some accountability amongst your team members where they're competing together and against each other, and then have accountability in team meetings where you can open and consistently on a weekly basis, in this case, talk about wins and losses, because that's where things will come up. Agents don't know what they don't know, and they're not going to just go out of their way to ask you tough questions. But when they're trying to accomplish something and they're not winning, they're going to ask questions about how do I win? And if you're their only source of information, it's probably not going to be great. You're going to run out of ideas. But if they're competitors, like I would have never thought of doing a competition at the hospital, to get more contacts. That would have not been my first guess or first suggestion. But it was Keaton's, or it was Brian's, and then Keaton did it, and then Aaron did it. And so my point is when you have information coming from other places, people will get really creative if you give them the framework to work within, and they'll compete at a really high level. The $150 gift card that they won was peanuts compared to the business they did. And one last example of that is Jimmy. In our first quarter, he sold 2 homes. He was a brand new agent. He had this limiting belief about maybe I'm not cut out for this business, right? He gets in this competition. He is an extremely competitive person. He was so mortified about the thought of letting his team member down. He sold a home every single week he was the only person on the team to sell 8 homes in 8 weeks. He did it. He had sold 2 homes in the previous 3 months, and in 2 months he sold 8 homes simply because he didn't want to let his team member down. That's the power of accountability.
There it is, friends. The power of accountability. Jonathan, thanks for joining us today. Simple, not easy. I mean, that's the key here. Here's the genius of Jonathan Mills. He stripped away everything that didn't matter and got down to a very select handful of activities, lead measures that were going to result in the lag measure that he wanted. Let's just review the concept. When we say lead measures, we're talking about the things that we're doing. So if I said to you, I want to lose 10 pounds, the lead measures would be the calories that I'm eating and the amount of minutes that I'm moving. The lag measure would be the 10 pounds. In this case, adding 5 contacts, 1 a day on a weekly basis, writing 1 handwritten note, making these 5 connections, having the 3 role play sections, hosting the 2 open houses. These are the lead measures. And he knows that if we do those things consistently, we're going to get the lag measures. These are signing agreements and having closings. There's nothing innately brilliant about the activities they were taking, but here's the genius of it. They took them. Did you notice what he said? People that had done 2 deals in the previous 5 months suddenly did a deal a week. Friends, activity leads to activity, which leads to more activity. And that's what he did. Putting people together with a partner and giving them a common goal, that's just brilliant leadership. Here's my question. Are you as clear on the activities that you need to be taking every day that Jonathan and his team got by running this 8-week program? Are you tracking them in a way that makes you wake up in the morning and think about the actions you're taking? Or are you waking up and you're doing some good stuff? Because here's the deal. If you do some of it, you're going to get very little of the end result. But if you do a lot of it consistently, that's when big things happen. Gary Keller's fond of saying you can be anywhere you want to be within 5 years. You know how you get there? You figure out exactly what needs to be done, and you don't end that day or even start something new until your one thing is finished. In this competition, that one thing was generating leads and contacts. Go forth and do likewise.